Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm doing my video early so I can spend time with the family, but we have a lot to talk about with some huge changes on the way, especially after the new year heading into that second week of January. And one of the reasons for that is the polar vortex. Now, right now, it is very strong, wrapped up into a ball up there into the stratosphere. That's one of the reasons why we're going to be so warm between now into the end of the month comparison to what normally would feel like in the month of January. But as we head into after New Year's and especially into that second week of January, you start to see the polar vortex start to stretch out and elongate and send pulses of that colder air further south. And I think it really starts to intensify as we head into that second week of January. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and I would love to reach 250,000 subscribers by the end of the month. And you can help me get there by subscribing to the channel and following all my daily content. So right now, we're going to be on the warmer side. Obviously, this isn't feeling like your normal Christmas for a good part of the country outside. And it's not going to feel normal, especially through the rest of the year, because we're still going to be experiencing above, if not well above average temperatures comparatively to normal Decembers around here as into the lower 48. But as we head into that New Year's Day time frame, we're going to be starting to see the beginning stages of some of that stretching coming down from that polar vortex as some of these positive height anomalies start to retreat further north. That will allow these troughs to kind of start to sink in underneath, and we start to see the beginning stages of that, of some of the cooler air coming in into the lower 48. And I think what that will likely intensify as the days get towards that first week of January. So going into New Year's Day, it's not going to feel, very cold outside, but you're still going to begin the beginning effects of some of that cooler air coming down the pike with just average temperatures. So comparison to what it would be like for the next, five days out there, even average would feel like really good, is feeling a lot more like December as you start to see some of these more higher above average temperature anomalies start to retreat back up into Canada. And I think they will only lift even further north, especially as we head into that first weekend of January. And at the same time, we'll have an active polar jet stream. So we should see above average precipitation for those areas across Montana, through Wyoming, back into Colorado, swing as far south as into the Texas Panhandle. And this would likely be the more favored storm track, at least in those first couple of days of January. And insinuating, some of that could be changing over into the form of snow as these low pressures will be coming down and swinging east heading into that first weekend of January. So if we start to look at some of these longer range ensembles, especially on the GFS ensembles heading into that first weekend of January, we start to see some snow starting to fly with that low pressure coming down the pike, with that cross polar flow coming back. So we should start to see more snow building up there in British Columbia, back up into Idaho, into Montana again, as well as into Wyoming, eventually sneaking back into Colorado, and likely sneaking as far south as getting into the Texas Panhandle. And then this would likely swing eastbound, setting the stage for more snow for those areas across the Northeast, especially heading into that first weekend of January. So heading in, going into those first couple of days of January, we start to see, even on the Climate Prediction Center, starting to hint of some of that heavy snow coming back in the picture, with that low pressure diving southbound and some of that colder air coming in. So we should start to see a more heavier snow swath coming back in the picture from Montana back through Wyoming into Colorado. Northern areas of New Mexico would likely sink into western Nebraska, western Kansas, getting into the western Oklahoma Panhandle. It would likely stop somewhere in the vicinity of the Texas Panhandle, and then likely would swing eastbound going into that first week of January. So yes, heading into that first week of January, you definitely start to see the much colder air coming back. So this won't be average now. This would likely be 5 to 10 degrees below average as the same time we're going into that coldest month of the year. It is already cold for January standards, but we're going to be seeing colder than average weather. So you're definitely going to start to see the beginning stages of a much more feels like January coming back in the picture, especially as we head into that first week of January with much colder air coming down the pike as the more cross-polar flow will start to become a more, active and alive by then. And especially as we head north and looking at some of the teleconnections, they are definitely fully on board with what's to come heading into that first and second week of January with they're positive right now with the NAO, but as you head into that January timeframe, going into especially that January 5th, it almost falls off a cliff, right? So it definitely is a step down process, and you'll feel the step down process the deeper into that middle portions of January as we get, and the AO is almost identical, right? It pretty much falls off the cliff. It's positive right now towards Christmas where we are, and then it goes negative and it continues to plunge southbound heading into that January 5th timeframe, and that's would likely start to enter the coldest time period of some of the coldest air of the season so far into the lower 48. And yeah, definitely if you look at some of the height anomalies by the time we get into that time frame of January 7th, we definitely start to see that blocking building and the more positive features building over the top, and that's going to be trapping the much more colder air underneath. So it will be a step down process, but by the time we head into that first week of January and especially into that first time period of that second week of January, we definitely start to see the beginning feel of the much colder air and then likely the coldest air of the season being trapped into the lower 48. And this time frame looks to stay around at least about 7 to 10 days, if not longer, the way it looks right now. So it also, the polar jet's going to continue to remain active, so we should still see above average precipitation with these storm systems coming down the pike. So most of this will be in the form of snow with the colder air, but it definitely starts to get interesting as we head into that second week of January, especially further south you get with the above average precipitation being mixed with that above well below average temperatures by the time we get into that time frame. So the 7th looks like this on the ensemble front with that more active polar jet coming in, the cross polar flow coming in. That storm track's likely going to continue to remain alive and active, so this storm track with the snow should continue to produce snow and drop it further south, especially as you head into that second week of January, dropping the snow line into the Texas Panhandle, likely in northern portions of Oklahoma, into Missouri, back into Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. So we'll have to see how much of this is able to build further south and see if we can actually pull that snow line even a little bit further south than what some of the ensemble members are kind of hinting at right now. So, but yes, definitely favorable as you head into that, going into that second week of the month of December. Yeah, these height anomalies are more prevalent, right? You start to see that ridging over the top. You got warmer air in Alaska, warmer air just south of Greenland, and that's trapping the much more colder air underneath. So this definitely by far looks to be the coldest time frame of the season so far than what we've seen as of late. And the European ensembles, the EPS, is also implying the same way. So we got both global guidance is hinting at a much colder period, along with the teleconnections and the stretching of the polar vortex. So everything's aligning of much more colder air coming back into the picture after New Year's, but really intensifying head into that second week of January, and then getting deeper into that January timeframe through that 9th and 10th. Wow, it really gets cold, folks. So this would likely easily be the coldest air of the season, and much colder anomalies would really start to plunge well south by then. So most of Texas would likely get into the action by then, with the coldest air of the season dipping all the way down into the deep south, heading into the Ohio Valley. So this would easily be the coldest time of the year. And if we look at some of the percentages on where some of the snow could fall as far as the GFS ensembles, these are your percent tables. So right now, this is your red. This is more, obviously 100% probability of seeing snow over the next 2 weeks. But that snow line likely dips further south with a much more, active polar jet stream. So it would likely stop somewhere in the vicinity of the Texas Panhandle, and then that snow line would shift eastbound. So we likely can't roll out snow entering as far south as the Oklahoma area, getting pretty much all of Arkansas, getting into all of Missouri, portions of Arkansas, as well as into Tennessee and Kentucky, and that snow line would likely be active all the way up into the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. That's the GFS ensembles, and the European ensembles is essentially applying the same thing as much colder air will come down into the lower 48, and you'll have an active polar jet stream, active storm track with the cross-polar flow, with these low pressures coming in from Montana, likely swinging down in the Texas Panhandle and then shifting off eastbound deeper into that second week of January. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch the next update. Why I protect you before and after the storm.